Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show we have Chris Anderson joining us, the creator of Chaotic Neutral and Mountain Bound, and we talk about defining success in your artistic journey, what it takes to be a full-time artist, and what introspective work you may need to do to find happiness in comics, and all of this and so much more on today's Inspired Inc. So, I mean, tell me what, like, a bit about your journey, like, in general. Like, why comics and where did you get involved with comics in the first place? You're an amazing artist. I love seeing all the work you've put out. And I'm so excited just to, like, see you and talk to you and do all this. But, like, where did the love of comics come from for you?
So let's see here. Where did the love of comics come from me? I think that my dad really loved comics. My dad grew up in a time before he grew up at the birth of comics, basically. So he was born in 1928. 1938 comes around, he's 10 years old. And then Superman's invented in what, 39?
39? Yeah, 39. Yeah.
So he's 11 years old. He gets Action Comics #1 or whatever it was, he has all these things. People forget that, the comic book was sort of, kind of like lowbrow, even more than today, right? It's super lowbrow. It's meant to be trashed.
Yeah, fold it up, 10 cents, you know what I mean? Stick in your pocket, like, yeah.
And comic book artists were kind of like looked down upon in the art world too. If you were a comic strip artist, if you were Milt Caniff, you were something else. You were the upper echelon. You were like famous,
Wow.
in the country, in the world, as big as a movie star almost, and Will Eisner and stuff like that. So my dad really had a lot of like Dick Tracy stuff around and spirit stuff and stuff like that. And he liked to draw a little bit. He was pretty good. He never did it professionally. And then I had comics around because I have older brothers too. I had some like early 70s Thor comics, John Buscema and stuff like that, lying around. And then I was always drawing. And then the Burton Batman 1988, 89 is when it came out. 88 is when the hype was happening. Yeah. And I got caught up in the hype of the Batman stuff and, started picking it up off the spinner rack at the gas station or whatever. And then, I just kept on pulling comics off and finding different interesting things. And that was right around the time. And everything that I was pulling off, I was kind of like, oh, this is okay. This is pretty good. It didn't really sink its claws too deep into me yet. And then, the early 90s, the Image founders, when they were still at Marvel, they came around. And that stuff was just exciting. That was like crack and candy and, everything all at once to like the 13-year-old mind, Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, no, I'm going to do, I just know in my bones, I'm going to do this for a living. And I dove into it as hard as I could. I was getting I had probably like, and my dad really encouraged this. I probably had like a $30-$40 a week pull list.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that's when like,
especially at that era, that's a lot of comics. Yeah. It's a handful. Yeah.
And so, so I really dove in hard. I got the Will Eisner, comics and sequential art book, and I got the How to Draw Comics the Marvel book, and started to go. I made a couple little pilgrimages to Chicago because I'm from the Twin Cities, from St. Paul, and went and showed my portfolios off when I was like, 13 and then 16. When I was 16, I got somebody at Marvel to actually give me like a tryout script. And so tried out for that, got some work
Ooh.
actually off of it. Don't have those pages anymore. Got some work, quote unquote, for like a Avengers annual that was coming out, and they were like showcasing some people, but then it never happened. It never got published. I think that I don't know if they went bankrupt that year and didn't publish an annual or what they did, but anyway.
I see the timeline we're working at right now, though. The shot.
Yeah. Then the bubble happened, and that was probably what, 95, something like that. I'm in high school. I'm also like starting to play more music while, because drawing all day, you have MTV on in the background.
Yeah.
There's a guitar that my brother left at home in the corner. So when I would get, needed a break from drawing for a second, I'd pick up the guitar, and then pretty soon it flip flopped.
Oh.
I realized that comics weren't, these guys were making like $1 million a month or whatever, off of from Image. And then when that burst, that wasn't happening anymore. It was like, oh wow, I'm not going to be making a living off of comics, probably, or not as comfortable as I wanted. So I'm going to dive right into music. I went off to college for a year. Decided I was going to go to college in California for animation. Moved to California. Didn't get into the school I wanted to. So I just started my own animation company. And then it was like, I sold it right away, got into teaching, taught for like 18 years. And then like, what was it? Like around the time that the New 52 was happening at DC.
Okay. Yeah.
I just sort of was like, you know what? I'm going to start picking some stuff up again once in a while. I've got a couple of bucks burning a hole in my pocket. I'm going to check out some comics again. And it bit me just as hard as it did when I was, a teenager again. And so I was like, you know what, let's start messing around with stuff. And then eventually it just got to a point where between comics and storyboards, I could leave teaching and start doing this full time.
Oh, rad. Dude, what a ride and a roller coaster of, opportunities and things don't work out and just trying to figure out how to work past that and keep going. And then something else may not work out or as you planned. And then you just keep on like rolling with it and going with the punches. And that's something you really have to know how to do in the industry, is keep yourself motivated and going and inspired. And that's one of the most difficult things to accomplish as well.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, it is a job, so whether you're inspired or not, you got to do it, But yeah, you have to definitely roll with the punches. Things aren't always going to work out the way that you want to, just the way you want to. So you've got to be creative in figuring out what your next move is. And then you also have to kind of see. I was social, but I wasn't social in the way of like networking, and introducing myself to people, and making sure that people who could, move my career along, help move my career along. I wasn't putting them in, figuring out how to put them in my orbit in the beginning. And then I really picked that up pretty quickly, actually, and figured it out. I started to go to Drink and Draw in downtown LA, where Dan Panosian and Dave Johnson and Jeff Johnson were there weekly. And just through conversations with them and then other people around that were sort of my caliber at the time, trying to figure out the industry, I would just start to pick up on things and learn from them and, try to better myself and inject myself maybe in places where my foot, in doors that my foot didn't belong necessarily. And just, pretty soon you start building up.
Oh, that was one of my biggest questions, is how do you keep yourself afloat, doing this full time, basically. And it's really just, you have to get out there and you need to talk to people. You need to be part of the community. You got to see what people are up to and kind of just network and talk to everyone you can. Dan Panosian, super great guy. He was actually the first guy I ever interviewed in my life.
Oh yeah.
Super rad. Yeah. Super sweet guy. The respect his work so much. I think when Slots came out was my first time interviewing him. But That's monumental, because I feel like so many people are trying to figure out, how can I devote more time to this? Like, the day jobs get very draining. It can eat up your life. It can eat up your motivation, your creativity sometimes. And so, but you're even saying, like, as a professional and as like someone who does this, you have to attack even when you're uninspired. And so, how do you work through some of those mental blocks, or those moments where you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna even get myself to pick up a pencil and like force myself to do this? Is it more of like a, I have a gun to my head situation, or is it more of like realizing this is what I love and I need to do this, or else it's going to fall apart in front of me?
There's a little bit of both of that. I think that there's a sink or swim aspect to it. Like, rent is coming. What are you going to do? You know,
Hmm.
you know. So you just have to buckle down and do it, whether you're inspired to do it or not. And then sometimes you'll get in ruts where you'll get this sort of like imposter syndrome that'll creep into,
Yeah.
and you'll start to lose your way. You start to think too much about style. You start to think, is my work standing out, or is my work just run of the mill right now, and is it doing me any good? And that's a bad place to be. I would oftentimes start comparing myself and go like, I should draw this. These eyes aren't right. I should draw them more like. Let me go look at Art Adams' stuff again and like see how he handles it. He does really great this, or whatever creator it might be, and try to like steer my style towards the creators that I love. And I would find that would make things worse, and I would get more down on myself, and then the imposter syndrome would really kick in. And then it isn't until I kind of go, stop doing that. Why are you being dumb? Just draw the way that you draw. And it's almost like it just evaporates and you're back, you
I
know?
love that. Really, just like have the confidence in yourself. Like, give yourself a hint of confidence, and then you go run a mile, basically.
Yeah, you
Um,
really can.
I mean,
Um,
I get into that even with my, I do the Spilled Ink show, the live drawing show, and so like I always put myself down on my art. And people have heard me on the show and like all this, where I just don't feel like I'm a caliber artist, especially only doing this for about a year or so in general. And I have seen some level ups, but I noticed that, and now more than especially what you just said, resonated a lot. Just when I would go to another artist and be like, oh, I should reference this if I'm going to draw this character because I love this artist. And then I start using that as a reference, and I get more down on my art and harder on my heart because I'm comparing it to the person I'm kind of using as a reference or as an inspiration, when I should be using that more of like as a costume design reference, or maybe just a pose reference, and not like a stylistic reference. Like, using it as a stylistic reference, I feel like puts more of a hindrance on my drawing and my ability and my confidence, than just being like, oh, okay, I'm going to use that pose, but I'm going to be doing my own thing. I'm just using that as like a direct reference. And so, like, that's what's kind of getting me through some slumps right now, is just like, no, just look at it as that and just do your own thing. Just let it happen.
yeah, you're never gonna. I don't know if anybody looks at their art and is like, "Wow, I'm great,"
Yep.
Um, and including the people that you look at their stuff and say, "Oh my God, they're great."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think that if you start chasing that thing where you're comparing yourself to somebody else and wanting to be like a creator that that inspires you and makes gets you excited to look at their work. You want people to be excited to look at your work, and you love the way that this creator flows this line or does this certain thing. That's fine to do. Like, do that in your sketchbook, and then if it's working for you in that way, then you can start to incorporate it in your stuff. It'll happen naturally, but don't force it, and don't compare yourself, because like everybody's style is a natural thing that evolves over time.
Yep.
And it's really hard to comprehend that. I've felt for forever like I didn't have a style. I still sort of feel like I still wonder to this day if anybody could look at my stuff and say, oh, that's Chris Anderson's work. um, the way that you would look at Eric Larson and say, oh, Eric Larson drew that, I can tell
Yeah.
right away. um, and sometimes that's a good thing, maybe sometimes that's a bad thing. I don't really know, but the fact is everybody's work is like it's it's like a fingerprint. Everybody's is different, and if you want your fingerprints to look like somebody else's, well, too bad. You're not that person. You didn't go through the same journey that they did. You're going through your own journey. Figure it out for yourself, and just keep moving forward. And art's like bodybuilding or a sport, really, like
If it is, yeah.
becoming a comic book artist, because they're really, like you said, level ups. There really are level ups, and it's putting the work in and the time in and doing the reps, and finding a few moments in your week, not even in your day, to go to the side in your sketchbook on a side piece of paper and draw something that that you struggle with, or to experiment with a tool, or something that you want to mess with. And then eventually these little happy accidents that start to work, your brain picks it up whether you do or not, and then that becomes your style, and then you just move forward.
Yeah, honestly, and it's crazy how I'm slowly discovering this same thing with art, but with writing. When people are like, "Oh, I'm trying to find my voice," and when I was writing, I was like, "Oh, just whatever comes out is my voice." Apparently, like, and it's the same thing. Whatever comes out of your hand is essentially your voice, like your
Yeah,
style, and just
yeah.
accepting that and rolling with it. And like you said, over and over again. I mean, it's crazy the leaps I've seen like myself make when I was scanning all of my images I drew last year, to put into like a little, a little zine type of thing, all the spilled ink drawings we did. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is dramatically different from what I'm producing today, like right now. Like, and look how bad the hands were 6 months ago versus hands and eyes now. And you're just like, oh, I just had to do it a few times. Like, I think we
Yeah.
psych ourselves out of certain moments before we even really attempt. And once you complete a project or an image, a picture, you learn so much by completing it versus just like, I don't like where this is going, I'm just gonna stop. It's like, don't stop, just finish it and then see
No,
what
don't
comes out.
stop. No, 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 no. Don't quit. Don't stop. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's like you push yourself. Like, I'm constantly pushing myself. I'm constantly trying to grow. I'm trying to get better and put a little bit more energy and time and work on things that like pay more attention to something that previously maybe I didn't pay as close attention to, and do something that's harder. And it's
Mhm.
taxing emotionally, it's taxing physically and mentally. It really is. It's taxing. It is
Yeah.
like working out. And then you hit it, it works, and then now that has to be the new bar for you. That has to be your artistic status quo.
Mhm.
Everything that you do now has to be like that. And it's still going to be tough the next time you do it. It's still going to be tough and then pretty soon it's easy. And now this is just the way that you draw. And now you have a new bar that you set for yourself to get better. And you just keep building. And you're going to do that until you're 98 years old and keel over at your desk.
Honestly, and once you realize that, you're just like, oh, this is ongoing, this is just the process,
Yeah.
this is, I'm part of the process, I'm part of the whole. And you accept that, and it's crazy the amount of stress that will not be there the next time you approach the blank page or a new challenge. You're just gonna be like, oh, okay, I've done some stuff like this before, I'm still terrified, but I know I can do it. And I think the blank page anxiety hits everybody no matter what. But it's one of those things like, oh, you just fight past that, just knock it out, just kill it, and then growth will happen. People, I've seen it so many times, even with myself, heavily with myself, is where you're just like, oh, I don't, how do I get myself to go and do this? It's like, honestly, the first step is just getting up and just walking to your drawing board. And even if you did it for 10 minutes that day, 20 minutes, 3 hours, that's progress, just keeping it in mind and flexing those muscles over and over. Because if you're not flexing them, you're going to wear yourself out, and then 6 months are going to go by and you're just going to kind of live with that regret, or that thing where you're just like, man, I let so much, my abilities like kind of lowered because I took so much time off because I psyched myself out. Imposter syndrome creeps in. All these things, life factors happen, but it's a matter about how you pick yourself back up and just get back on the horse. And it sounds so simple, and it's the same answer we hear from so many people, but it's like a harsh truth and reality that a lot of creators have to repeatedly remind themselves of. And I feel like throughout your career, especially even just trying to get into comics, you've like in a sense mastered that in a really strong, strange way of just going through the motions and knowing that this isn't the end. This is just a step, and I'm going to take this next step, and it's going to progress you. And now you're working with like Cosmic Lion. You have some, I mean, you off air, you told me about some really great things you have in the progress right now, which is mind blowing. Would you have ever thought you would be landing gigs like this and doing this type of art, say like 5-10 years ago?
I would have hoped that I would be, you
Yeah.
know. You know, you don't go into it thinking that you're not going to grow, but yeah, I mean, it's actually, so I've been working full time as an artist for I think about 6 years at this point.
That's dope.
So I've managed to somehow figure it out. Um, and yeah, the more I push myself, the more I show that I can get things in on time, that the quality is there, that and that I'm trying to just, you know, be positive and a good guy throughout the whole thing. I think the more people that I work with, talk to other people, you know, and next time that person has a project that comes up, they go, "Who was that person that you worked with before?" "Oh yeah, I'm going to give them a call about this project." There's one thing that is not really ever talked about in this business as an indie creator, is that if you're going to go in and you are going to try to make a living doing this, you know, sometimes the first projects that you put out aren't going to hit. They're not going to be enough to sustain you to you know, pay your bills. And so you start to take on other projects with collaborators and publishers that aren't necessarily, they're indie, you know, but they're kind of work for hire. Mm-hmm. You start taking page rates, and you start working with other publishers and things like that, where you don't really have ownership or control of what you're working on. So you're just, you know, after that, that's basically it. And so you start chasing a paycheck so that you can make ends meet, and not finding much time to work on your own properties anymore. And so that is something that it's not talked about a lot, because sometimes either you're an indie creator and then your indie book, you know, hits, you know, you're putting all the work into it and your indie book hits, and you're able to ride on that, you know, thing. Think like Michel Fife or something like that, right? He's able to, because Copra was a hit, you know, he was able to keep it going and ride on it. Now I'm not saying it was easy by any means, and you know, it's going to be difficult no matter what. But you know, it's led to other opportunities for him and other things like that. So if you don't have that happen right away and you are trying to pay the bills, then like I said, you're taking on these things, and then it becomes like difficult to find the time to work on your thing that you want to present that will become a hit. So, you know, just to make ends meet right now, I'm drawing like three books at a time, and they're all in different phases, you know, of completion. But none of them are mine. And so the one that is mine that I'm working on, I have to find in between times. So like, if you are an independent creator who has a day job doing something completely different, you need to find that time when you come home to work on your own properties. And so someone like me, or if you decide, you know, to go the route that I did, you're working all day on comics. And then at the end of the day, when you're done with that, then it's time to work on your comic. And by that time, sometimes you're really, really burned out. I work way too much. I really do. I need to find more time, because I'm basically working 7 days a week from the time that I wake up to the time that I go to bed. And it's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
Now that sounds awful, and it's not great. It's probably not great for my health, but I chose this, and I wouldn't have it any other way, except for I would have my indie my own personal property hit and just be able to work on that, which would be fantastic.
And that's such an interesting balance because, when people talk about like, oh, my dream job is just to be drawing all day, to be like doing
Mm-hmm.
this. And it's even with me working for Comix Wellspring, I get to podcast, I get to like do networking stuff, like I run marketing. It's a total dream job, but it's like, it is still a job. And then at the end of the day, I have to go back and be like, oh, well, now it's time for Apollo work. And then I get so caught up with publishing and running and managing and editing. I'm like, I owe like 4 creator scripts from my work. And,
Yeah.
I built the publishing line so much in 2024. None of my books came out. Teenage Babylon, Fake Your Death, Broadcast, all my books got put on the back burner. And so hopefully they all come out this year. But even then, it's tentative because there's so much actual work to get done that you finding time for yourself in any capacity. And even, people have the struggle with relationships, finding time with themselves, or finding, time between schoolwork and your day job, and, trying to find just downtime in general. Putting time aside for yourself, for your own mental, for your own physical, for your own creations seems to be like the hindrance all of us run into. We kind of put the whole world in front of what we would like to do, but it's because we have to survive, like you said.
Yeah.
It's not an option. You need to pay rent, you need to get groceries, you need to make sure your animals are taken care of and all that type of stuff. And so it's interesting hearing that you have the dream job, but even the dream job gets in the way of the personal goals. And there's such a fine line of balance of what is the right call. And even though you're doing the dream thing, you're still chasing the dream, which is such a weird predicament to be in.
Yeah. Now the dream is to just be able to do one book, in the future that, I own the entire stake in.
Yeah.
Basically that's the dream job. And then of course I don't make things easy for myself either. I'm really bad at giving myself a break because on top of it all, I've got my own YouTube channel
Yep.
that where I interview creators, and we go over their latest book, and we go over a book that inspired them. But I'm using that time. That takes about like an hour and a half every time I interview somebody because it's split it up into 2 episodes. But I'm also learning stuff from that, so I'm actually getting something from it, even though I'm not getting financial gain. I'm getting knowledge.
Yeah.
And then we do the X-Men podcast on there too. John Coates and I every week do. And then I've now started to do a weekly live stream on Tuesdays where I'll look at a book or whatever, or something that came into my orbit that week, and then I'll just draw, and I use that time to work, that hour or whatever, to work on my personal work. And then my own personal work, the book that I'm working on now is Three-Headed Pigman that is serializing on my Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't made that easy on myself because I decided to work on pages that are 19 by 24, and they go slower than a regular
Yeah.
page. And I also got really stuck on the project for a while. I psyched myself out, and I got really, really upset with myself for not working on it for a couple months because I just kind of got stuck on a silly layout. And I tell people that, that's unacceptable in this business. You can't do that. It's comics. You kick it out the door, you keep moving on. And then here I am doing exactly that. It's so I understand, people's pain when they say, I'm just, I'm uninspired. I'm stuck on this thing. It's not that I'm uninspired. It's that I literally couldn't figure something out. But
yeah, like a roadblock or a mental block is different from uninspired. Yeah. I think we're all inspired. I think all of us, if you're doing this, and I mean in the capacity of like, especially like, it sounds like you have a very similar workload to mine, like from what as much as you do. And it's not that we're uninspired. I think we're just so inspired. We're trying to do so much, and it's hard to pick like, okay, where can I fit my time in right now? What can actually be done? And also I think that's another reason why, you talk about, even when you're uninspired, you work. It's because we have so much to do. There's no option. Like there's always something to be worked on. There's always something to call attention to make progress in. And you're always going to feel, I mean, I don't know if you feel like this. I always feel like this, but I'm always behind on 10 things. And I always owe people like 4 things. And I'm just like, okay, but I did do like 12 things today, and I got to take
Yeah.
accomplishment for that. Like just because I'm behind on a few things doesn't mean nothing got done. Does that overwhelm you sometimes? Do you feel like you're dipping your toes into too many things and you want to just centralize it all and like stop some of it? Or is
Oh,
it
for sure.
just so ahead of you and so much happening? You're like, I can't. It's impossible. There's no way that I could ever do that.
No, because there's moments in the day where you have to take a second and breathe and assess everything, and then sometimes I'll take that moment to breathe, and I'll go, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how I'm going to do all of this and get all of this done just to manage regular life, you know.
And then there's regular life, but yeah, we haven't even
Yeah,
discussed. You know
yeah.
what
I
I mean?
mean, 'cause
Like,
I have a wife that I still need to, pay attention to,
yeah,
and an elderly dog I need to take care of. It's just life is still happening. You know, and you wouldn't want it any other way, because all of a sudden you're going to be 90 and you're going to be like, what did I do with my life?
right.
But yeah, there's definitely, things are really, at this point in this very moment in my life, things are chaotic with too many projects going on.
Which is kind of a good
And
thing. You know what I mean? In a
it
very
well,
positive sense.
in a positive sense, but also in a sense where I'm like,
Yeah.
like, how is this? I mean, but I'm coming out of it now. I'm wrapping up one project, I'm almost to the point of wrapping up another, and really able to focus on this other one. And then by doing that live stream, like I said, I'm giving myself that hour to work on something that's not the things that people are like. Uh, I'm not staring down the barrel of a deadline on.
Right.
And just yesterday I put ink back on paper for Three-Headed Pigman, and I'm so excited to get it moving. But yeah, like I think everybody has to go through these kind of things themselves, and I learned what I can manage and what I
Hmm.
can't, and I learned that no matter what, it's going to be a little bit of a stress of management, because it's just what is called for in this job. But know the line where it's too far, and you got to figure that out for yourself. Like, how much can you manage healthily?
Yeah. Because when you start, sleepless nights and anxiety and there's nothing coming out of it, you're messing up somewhere. you gotta
Yeah,
you gotta reevaluate. But like if bills are getting paid, if things are happening, if progress is happening on these projects, it might feel like a lot and overwhelming. And you're kind of like, how do I even continue this? I mean, like even Mark Bernal, who runs Lesser Known Comics, we talk like, once or twice a week. And our phone calls always start off like, are we quitting comics this week? Is this it? Am I done? Like, and at the end of it, we have like 3 new ideas for books. And we're like, I guess we can't quit. Like, it's just too cool. But that's what it is. It's feeling overwhelmed and then being like, oh, I put myself here. I asked for this. Like I worked to get to this point that I'm at right now. And I'm going to keep on working to like advance myself to make it easier. You kind of
yeah,
open a bunch of cans to kind of break in and get yourself into the industry and into people's heads and your name on books. And then like, you want to be in everyone's Rolodex. So when they're looking for someone, they know who to talk to. And you get to that point and you kind of realize how much work you did. And now you're just like, wow, I have so many things and so many people to follow up with, talk to. And that was on you. Like, it's one of those things. I always kind of get overwhelmed myself. And I'm like, oh, I put myself in this position. And it feels weird because you want to complain about it, but it's also something you want to like celebrate and be like, I can't believe I'm actually pursuing and winning at what I set out to do. And it's because of all that hard work and overcoming that imposter syndrome and that doubt and rolling with the punches and realizing that you have a goal and you're going to achieve it. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've been working towards the last 15, 20 years in general. And how did you get involved with Cosmic Lion at that point, throughout this journey?
Oh wow, gosh, Cosmic Lion happened because of cartoonist kayfabe,
Nice.
and joining the Facebook group. During probably during lockdown, and that's right when they started to do the image grand design
Yeah.
thing. I think Wizard one, Eli had already put out. And when they started to formulate the grand design thing, I just sort of offered myself up as sort of, I was already, I'd already had stuff published in heavy metal and, other
Cool.
things. And my career was starting to go.
What issues of heavy metal
Um,
were you in? I don't remember that.
oh gosh, I was in like 12 issues of heavy metal.
Oh my gosh, that's so sick.
Like starting at like 297, I think.
Oh, I might have some heavy metal issues
You
with your work
probably
and
do if you
probably didn't
have the
even realize it.
last, yeah, if you have the last like 15, 20 issues, I'm in it,
Okay.
probably like 12 of those.
I got back into heavy metal right before Grant Morrison took over, and I kept up with it, and then a little bit after that too. And I know that was like around that era, I want to say, right?
Yep. I
Yeah.
came in, I think I popped in right. I think Grant Morrison was like still in it when I was coming
That
in.
numbering sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah. I got to
Yeah,
go
it was
through
like
my
a
boxes
holiday
after this.
issue. Yeah.
Okay. I think I do. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
If I bring
So
you
that
that,
was
if I
already
have it, I'm going
going.
to take it to IC3 so you can sign it. That's fucking sick.
Yeah, totally. I usually have a few comp issues that
Oh,
I
cool.
drag with me to conventions.
Oh, I might snag
Um,
one of those too then from you.
yeah,
That's
totally.
awesome.
I'm probably going to be in the new iteration of it too.
Oh, sick. Cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
Frank Forte is a cool guy. I interviewed him back when I was doing interviews with Apollo City Comics, and just knowing that he's doing all that now is really, really interesting because I remember talking to him about him struggling with getting footing on Kickstarters and how his was only making 2,000 but people were making 15, 20, 25. And here you fast forward 4 years later and he's running the heavy metal stuff and it's in the 500,000 mark from when I last checked. And I even backed it. I was really curious on what they're going to do with the issues now.
yeah. No, let's see here. The previous iterations of heavy metal were difficult to handle, to deal
Yeah,
with,
I've heard.
and
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I swore I was never going to work with them again.
Oh, I can
But
imagine.
when Frank and Dave Kelly uh, came in, and then I knew that it was going to be in the right hands, and I was kind of seeing what they were doing with it, and I was like, no, this is right. I will absolutely work with them again. And then
Awesome.
Dave approached me about it. Yeah. So back to the Cosmic Lion thing. So yeah, I was already, like I said, I was already kind of established a little bit, and I just loved the fact that it was all of these people who were just kind of starting to try to break in or had never made a comic before and stuff like that. And nobody gets to where they are on their own. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs somebody to introduce them to this person or to give them this piece of advice or whatever it was. And I wanted to kind of pay it forward a little bit in that way by saying, hey, listen, I'll do whatever you need. Like if somebody needs their stuff colored, if somebody needs it, there's something, they've never inked anything before and they're not confident in it. I'll help ink. Just kind of whatever they needed to get it over the finish line. And, I ended up doing quite a few pages in that stuff. And then the cover for Grand Disaster I did also.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's right.
And so that was my introduction to Cosmic Lion and those guys. Then Rocco, who was editing it, had asked me if I wanted to, or I said to him, if great working with you, great writing. If you ever want to work on something in the future, let me know, and I had talked to Eli about, maybe doing something, my own comic in Wizard 2. And Rocco was like, well, actually, I've got this idea called Ghost Agents, and I want to, put it out. And so the first Ghost Agent story was in Wizard 2, and Rocco and I did that together. So that's how it snowballed. But then Eli actually doesn't live very far from me. I'm here in the middle of this inferno apocalypse called Los Angeles right now. And Eli's in even closer to where the fires are happening right now, scarily close, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't live too far away, and so we would just I'd go over to his house.
Cool.
He'd come over here. We'd meet up for lunch, and we'd hang out. And Eli and I just became really good friends. And then, I wanted to do a book with Cosmic Lion, but I didn't really have anything ready. And it had to kind of be. I was like, well, what can we come up with something that I already have that we can put out. And so we decided to put out the art of Gray Matter Drip, the art of Chris Anderson. So it's like all the commissions and a few pages actually from Heavy Metal that I had gotten the rights back to when they closed down before they came back, are in there, and some covers and things like that. So it's just a good swath of the work that I did a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's all over the place. It's Skylight Books here in Los Angeles is like one of the most respected bookstores in the country, and random people have been messaging me with screenshots that the book is like right there when you walk in.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, I should probably go over there and be like, "This is me. You want me to sign it?" But that's how I got in with Cosmic Lion. We have some plans for some future things that I've been doing, and yeah, it's a great relationship, and I love Eli, and I just love the fact that he's doing what he's doing. I think really, really good things are going to come out of it, and I think that he has the potential to be a powerhouse publisher in the industry.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Eli, he's such a great dude. And it's funny, our first like a couple months of knowing each other when we first met, I got his number and I was like, yeah, as a publisher too, I'll ask you for any advice or, CWS work and all that type of stuff. And like, we didn't talk the first few months we were messaging. We were just sending each other cat pictures, like at random, like randomly. And so I'm sure he woke up a few times to just random text for me. And it was just like, why is Brandon sending me cat pictures? And I just get that in response. And we got to know each other more. And at Heroes Con, I got to have a cool conversation about like, hey, dude, I've been in this for like a year and I'm publishing. This is what I've been doing. Am I on the right track? This is how I bring on people. Is that the right mindset? And he gave me so much advice and so much like a mentorship, like a mini mentorship at that point. And it really gave me a lot of confidence to move forward with Apollo and what we've been attempting and doing and finding our own flavor and everything, because I love the community he's brought together. I love all the creators he's brought on. You could tell everybody on that team is just a cool, awesome person. And every time I bring a Cosmic Lion person on any show I do, it's just rad and fun and it's a blast, so he is very pivotal in the industry. And if you want to find good indie comics, Cosmic Lion is definitely like a great avenue to go in that direction. But it's also birthing a whole bunch of creators. Everything that happened during COVID, I've interviewed countless people who bring up the exact books that you brought up, and that alone blows me away.
He's been kind of an incubator, from starting with the image grand design stuff. There are some people who, they kind of showed that they were serious about this, that they're serious about comics and telling stories their way. And, Eli just kind of embraced that. And as he grew the company, he pulled those people in to do their projects. And just really, really, really great stuff is coming out of it. And it's only growing and people are only getting better.
Yeah. And that's the cool part, especially seeing indie artists grow and their skills advance and seeing what they turn into from when they start. Kids like Morgan Heron is just killing it, like starting and publishing the books and just like his style and everything. I love seeing where he's gone from Frankie Boy issue 1 and now issue 4 is coming out. And it's just like, that's insane, dude. Like you're really around the right people at the right time. Going back to like obtaining work and, being a self-fulfilled artist at that point, like how do you turn down offers? How do you turn down projects? And how do you know what's the right opportunity to move forward with? I know that could be very crucial in someone's time, energy, and their commitment to the industry of finding the right gig that won't steer you away from the industry as a whole. How do you go about that?
Yeah, there's a variety of factors in that. So I will get it all comes down to money, right? Because if I'm working on my book full time, then I'm not getting paid, and rent is expensive in Los Angeles. So I have to, no matter what, I have to be working on something else right now at the same time. Like I said, until I can get that up and becoming its own sustainable thing, which I'm working towards. But gigs that come in, you can smell the BS a mile away from people. Um, there are plenty of publishers that I just won't even consider working with, because they're just, the quality isn't there in the books that they have. They're only in it to try to turn it into movies, and that's not what if something that I do gets turned into a movie, fantastic. But
Yeah.
if that's what the entire industry is based, or entire model is based off of, then that's just kind of gross to me. And
You're in it for the
but
craft and the craft of comics is what you're in it for.
yeah, and if I am going to do something like that, then you've got to give me control over what that book is going to look like and how that story is going to be told. You have to. Um, you're not gonna be a director coming in and telling me what kind of shot that I'm gonna put in a comic, because this is different, and I haven't spent this much of my life learning and trying to master comics and just for somebody who is in a different medium to come in and tell me how to do it.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not how it works. I do get, like, living in the Hollywood area. I get a lot of screenwriters that will, message me saying, my agent said that this would sell better if it was a graphic novel. And, like I said, I still have to take on jobs that are, um, paying gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, the scripts that I get are also pretty awful, and they wouldn't translate to a comic very well. Um, I will still throw them a number, and I'll throw them a ridiculous number that nobody would ever pay, and kind of hope that they'll go away if I don't like the project. Sometimes they don't go away. Sometimes they can pay it, and then that's fine too. I'll do it.
Do you feel like that's more of a like, okay, well, I have this gig. It's not that it's cool that I'm getting paid. I'm not too crazy about it. Do you take it in more as like practice? Like this is going to help
Yeah,
at least advance
absolutely.
me. I could try some stuff out. I could kind of like, find my own fun in it in that sense.
Yeah, you have to. You can't. Yeah, you have to do that. You have to. No matter what you're doing, you got to bring it all to it, because it's all part of the reps,
Yeah.
that you're putting in.
Shows how professional you are.
Yeah, and depending on what the project is, you might have to alter your style a little bit, and so you're getting to learn how to manipulate your style to the tone of the story and things like that. But every once in a while, a project will come along that's like that the script is really great, and the creator and the creator is really great, and so you kind of don't throw them a stupid number, you throw them a reasonable number.
Mm-hmm.
And you really work with them to try to get it to be a great comic. And I've done one or two of those at this point too, and those are great gigs, because if you're turning a full script into something, it's usually a pretty long gig. The pay rate's generally pretty good, and that can get you through for months on end.
Nice.
You just got to figure out how to do it, and then you have to think about other things too, like, okay, you're coming to me with this thing that's supposed to be a script that's supposed to be turned into a film. You don't want to have 50%. This is your script and your idea, and you want to do it. You're not going to give me 50% of the rights to it, because right, who am I? But you do need to give me some sort of percentage if it does in fact go, because you got to start thinking about sustainability in the industry too, for yourself financially, because you can't just go from project to project on a page rate and then that's it. You have to figure out how to get passive income with things,
Some
and how to make,
royalties or something, residuals of some sort, right?
yeah, you have to start figuring those sorts of things in. Otherwise you're just going to be treading water for the rest of your life.
So how do you open yourself up? I know, we were talking about networking and just getting in people's Rolodexes and, making sure that you're on people's minds when projects do open up. But aside from that, how else do you seek out these type of opportunities?
Um,
Or how do you
I
present yourself to be sought out, I guess, for these
yeah,
opportunities?
well, in comics in particular, like, uh, I do still, even though I want to tell my own stories, I want to have my own stuff, I want to do my own thing, I want to experiment and tell different kinds of stories and open up the way that comics, the way that I want to open it up. I do still want to work with other, I would love to do the random DC or Marvel book still. Like I still would like to do that in my career, you know.
Hmm.
So or you know or write and draw a Godzilla book or you know whatever it may be. Um, and so that part of the business is just you have to get yourself in front of the editors and you have to make sure that they know who you are without driving them crazy.
Mm.
So
Makes sense.
that's another thing. You can't be bothering them all the time, but you know, hit them up every once in a while, remind them that you exist, show your growth, show what you've been doing. When you see them at conventions, you know, it's kind of a weird thing. It makes you feel a little bit gross at first, but you got to like learn their faces
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that you can incidentally bump into them and say, "Hi, remember me?"
Hmm.
Um, and then eventually you're just
What I
friends
did with
with these
Shelly
people,
Bond, to where
you know?
she was
Yeah,
like cool with me,
yeah,
essentially.
right. You know, and eventually, just over time and just being around people, it's a very small industry. You know,
Hmm.
people are going
It
if
really
you're
is.
around long enough, people are going to start to remember you or remember those interactions with you, and then the work just sort of starts to come to you,
Hmm. That makes
which is a
sense.
good spot to be in.
And I mean, honestly, like I think a lot of creators overlook that one key aspect. They chase, oh, I want to be noticed by this writer. I want to be noticed by my favorite artist. I want to be noticed by, X, Y, and Z. But I rarely hear being like, oh, I've been seeking out editors and I've been making sure I look at the editors and books to know who to talk to, who to find on social media, who to kind of chase. And I think that's a key thing is you need to find the people that are in charge of running the book and not just the creators of the book, the people who are editing and editors in chiefs and assistants and all this type of stuff
Hmm.
matter a lot more than getting the attention of your favorite artist that inspired you.
Yeah, those assistant editors and stuff too, and those people that are doing marketing, you know,
Yeah.
are also all things like that. Those are people that you need to know because in a year they could be editor in chief.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
It really does change that fast all the time.
I mean, Shelly is
Sometimes
a
to the
great
detriment
example
because
of that, because we both know her and she was on the show. It's like she was assistant and became editor in chief and is doing her own imprint and she has opportunities. And so if you are on her radar, there's chances for stuff like that. But you
yeah.
need to realize like who to talk to. But my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off on that either.
No. I'm sorry. I thought I was cutting you off and felt bad for a second there. No, but yeah, that really is true. Getting to know those people, the editors, is probably one for an artist. For an artist, I will say for an artist, and then number two is getting to know writers and getting to know other artists is not very many artists are going to be like, oh, I can't take this gig, and I thought of you. Will you do it? It happens, you know,
Yeah.
and you have that camaraderie with artists because everybody's doing kind of we speak each other's language, if you will,
Hmm.
right? Uh, and writers too, to a degree. There is a difference, but you get to know writers. Well, writers will get gigs, and then they'll be asked, "Who do you want to work with?" You know, or they will say, "Hey, look, I've got an indie gig coming up. I want to create a pitch to go to Dark Horse. Will you work on this pitch with me, and we'll own it 50-50 or whatever it is?" You know, so writers are great, but editors are the best because once you're in with an editor, then you're in.
Yeah.
You know, once I know there's plenty of people who there's some like properties that I really love. You can probably like tell by looking over my head. Well,
Yeah.
hey, it's through the plant. One in particular that I've been told that you either need to have worked for the maker of the toys in order to do the official comic, draw the official comic, or have worked with the editor and even the writer who has been writing their stuff for forever and is a good friend of mine, keeps trying to get me in and is like, they haven't worked with you and yet, so they won't, you know, take you on. And so once you get in with these editors and they pull you in for one thing, then they'll pull you in for more. You know,
Hmm.
they'll pull you in for covers, they'll pull you in for, you know, backups, they'll pull you in for full on series.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have that door open to bring your own properties to them. You
Mm.
know, you're building it up. The thing that I've found that is frustrating though in this industry is you can start to build these relationships with people over the course of like a couple years
Hmm.
and get to that point, and then these bigger companies do shakeups, and then that person is moved off to somewhere else, and you're like,
Yeah.
ah, either completely out of the industry or moved on to another company, which that can be good, okay too,
Yeah.
because then they'll pull you into that. But you were chasing one thing and they keep moving the goalpost on you. That moving the goalpost happens a lot
I
in
mean, I
this
feel like
industry.
that's the constant that you deal with in comics, no matter what, is that goalpost can shift sides of the yard while you like slept overnight
Yeah,
or
yeah,
blinked and whatnot, you know?
yeah. Because when I started, it was like, what was it was like there was like a pipeline, and it was like you do a book, you get in at Image and or you get in at like Marvel and DC, and you start to build a following
Yep.
there, and then you move over to Image, and you bring the fans with you and you blow it up there, and then
Or
it moved to
recommender special, you know what I mean? Yeah.
right, and then it did a complete 360 where, oh no, you get your book in at Image first, and then start building a fan base off of your property, and then the big two want to pull you in to make money off of the success that you had on your own, and
Yep.
that's how you do it, and that's how your career goes.
That's what happened to
And
Donny Cates
now
too.
it's like I don't know what it is, and so that's when I sort of got to the point where I was like, well, okay, now they're moving the goalposts on me constantly. I feel like Charlie Brown and Lucy's Football all the time. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do what I do and what's working for me. And I'm going to pivot and move when I have to. And so far, it's been working. Knock on wood. I
I
think
mean,
I'm figuring it out.
it's one of those things where like nobody breaks into the industry the same way, and
No, they
it's just
don't.
one of those factors. It goes along with the same thing. Like the way I broke into comics, it was through podcasting and a stroke of luck. You know what I mean? I was at the right place with the right time. And even getting this gig with Comics Wellspring, I was at the right place, the right time, talked to the right person, developed a relationship, and it went from contract work to full time. And it's like, you just got to put yourself out there. And honestly, it's, knowing how to share your story and know how to present yourself in a sense will take you a long way as well, because I'm like, oh, I relate to that. I see what you're doing and saying. And so, yeah, I'll keep you open for when we have something open. And then that phone call is probably going to happen at some point, especially when you least expect it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's just, I guess, it comes down to it's weird because it kind of comes down to being professional. That's really work ethic, meeting, networking, keeping up with deadlines, like showing what your worth is at that
Yep.
point. And I think a lot of indie creators struggle with that, is determining their worth when it comes to commissions or when it comes to page rates or project
Mm.
rates. It's that's a hard factor to do when you're thinking of, oh, am I going to charge by the hour? Am I going to charge by pages, by projects? Like, what is going to be right for the creators? And how did you determine that for yourself? Did you go by an hourly rate at some point? Was it always just a project, or does it kind of shift from project to project on determining rates?
Um, yeah, I kind of go. It depends on what the project is. Like commissions, um, from the get go, I was always, and I'm still am a proponent of saying, look, you're worth more than you think that you are.
Yeah.
This somebody is buying a piece of original art for you, and that's just because that you are capable of doing it, and other people aren't. Or you might think that you're not up to par or whatever because of your own whatever's going on in your head. No, you are worth it. Like this is your time and effort, and there are just so many people out there who just charge so little. And as a person who isn't wealthy, I can appreciate that, but at the same time, like maybe it's something that's special, and it's something that maybe should cost a little bit more than you think it should normally cost. So my commission price is, like a 11 by 17 is $300, black and white. That's what it is. And, but then I'll see people out there charging like $50 for the same thing, and I'm like, you got to bring that up,
Yeah.
because charging so low brings everybody else down, because people will look at somebody else and be like, I ain't going to spend $300. They will spend it.
It's like the
Trust me, they
housing
will
market
spend it if they
almost.
want it. Yeah, so always charge more, always ask for more, you know, and if you're working for a company and they say, you know, they're going to give you, you know, $150 a page, black and white art, you know, pencils and inks, you say no. It's 300 a page, and then they'll say no, it's 200 a page, and then you'll say no, it's 250 a page, and then they'll say it's 225, and now you're 225, and you can live off of that. You know, it's not the greatest, and honestly, page rates need to go up in this industry, but it's hard because it's you know, it's not the comic book industry of 1942, you know.
Yep.
You know, it's not as there are ways to make money making comics, but it's not always about the comics
Yeah,
selling fun,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
But rates do need to come up. This is a whole other conversation. It's like so hard. It's like, why isn't there a union in comics? Well,
No. Yeah.
because comics are an international endeavor, and there's no way you're going to do that. And you know,
Why is there no
why do
benefits in
companies pay
comics?
so
Like,
little? Yeah, because you know, if you're living in Italy, it costs a lot less to. You need to make a lot less than you do in the United States. So that's why there's a lot of Italian artists, or you
yeah,
know, people from South and Central
Argentina
America.
and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, it is just what it is. You can't fight that, but you can know what your worth is, put your time in, and you know, fight for yourself.
I love it. Dude, Chris, this has been such a informative and insightful conversation. Not anywhere where the direction I thought the conversation was going to go when we first
I
started
tend
talking.
to bring that
No,
out in people.
I love that so much because I feel like this is one of the most important episodes we've done because I think this is all information indie creators need to hear and to not only realize, oh, I have the same mindset and I'm in the same scenario, but it's just how do I figure out how to get out of my slump? How do I figure out how to make advancements? What mindset do I need to change? And I think you answered that a whole lot for everybody watching and listening. And you know, we met last year at IC3. I'm so hyped to see you at IC3 this year. It's going to be such a rad time. There's so many cool things planned, and also just like so much has changed over the last year since I last saw you. I can't wait to show you all the cool Apollo stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but dude, thank you for your time. Thank you for this conversation. I can't wait to get you on Spilled Ink, or you know, maybe I could guest on one of your other shows. That sounds like such a blast to talk to you more.
Absolutely, man. I'd love that.
Definitely. And do you want to do any quick shout outs right before we sign off today?
Shout outs to like my socials and stuff, you mean?
Oh yeah, anything. Yeah, people, socials, anything you want.
I mean, shout out to all my homies in the comic book world. But yeah, you know, like I'm really bad at remembering to tell people where to go to find my stuff. I have a Patreon that I curate. I think I curate pretty well. I don't think you're gonna be disappointed in it. You get a bunch of stuff, and there's commissions, and read exclusive stuff, and watch me, you know, make mistakes, which is important. So you can go check that out. It's Patreon/Chris Anderson Comics. I have a YouTube channel, like I said, where I do a lot of creator interviews, try to pry as much out of their heads as possible for your enjoyment and education. There is we're going through the entire Chris Claremont X-Men run right now, which is going to take 17 years, I think.
Straight up, honestly.
with John Coates. It's been pretty great. We've had really great guest stars on that too. And then, like I said, I do the live stream probably every Tuesday if I can manage it. And then I'm on Instagram. Everything is at Chris Anderson Comics, and then it's also where my website is, so you can buy original art and comics and a lot of stuff. So chrisandersoncomics.com. And yeah, that's it.
Love it. Chris, thank you so much, dude. I can't wait to bring you back on one of the shows and talk again.
Thanks.
And to all of our audience, as always, get ready for IC3. We're so hyped for this convention. We have a lot of stuff planned. You get to see me and half the Apollo crew there too. So you can see all the comics we've made. You get to see the Cosmic Lion Island and just dozens and dozens of indie creators. Tom Sicoli's going to be there. I might get him on the show soon. So I got to talk to him a little bit more.
He's great. He was a great interview. Yeah.
Dude, he's so sweet. I got to table with him at Free Comic Book Day last year, and he was just the
that's
coolest
awesome.
guy in the world. Yeah, sweetheart.
Talk to him for forever.
Honestly, yeah. such
And
good dudes.
Jim Rugg too.
Yeah,
You
Jim's
know?
going to be there.
Mhm.
So many cool stuff. So please check out tickets for IC3. You can see all of Chris's links below in the episode description and your ways to get tickets to IC3. So we'll see you there. And as always, thanks for hanging. Stay inspired and stay creative.